Before we dissect the latest Los Angeles Lakers news and rumors, I want to hear from all of you tuned into the show. Let me know where you're watching from. Shout out your city in the comment section. Let's talk some Lakers basketball right now. What's good? Welcome in. You're watching the Lakers Report by Chat Sports. I'm Chase Senior. Hope all of you are having an awesome week. We have an awesome show on the slate for you all today and a great sponsor making today's show possible. The Lakers Report presented by Aura. They specialize in Social Security online protection. Don't be that person who gets their identity stolen. 14-day free trial if you go to aura.com/chatsports. That link available in the comment section and the description of this video. We'll tell you more about Aura coming up here in just a few moments. We start off with Russell Westbrook. According to Adrian Wojnarowski, the Lakers will look to deal Russ after hiring Darvin Ham, but it may not happen. According to Marc Stein, another one of these great basketball insiders, Los Angeles not budging on giving up additional assets just to trade him away. Now, obviously, there are financial incentives that we have to talk about and cover when it comes to Russell Westbrook. Russ deciding on a $47 million player option. He has to decide on that by the end of June 29th to be specific. Marc Stein on his Substack about Russ and all of these Lakers trade rumors saying this: the Lakers are tuning out the skeptics yet again and insisting to anyone who will listen that they would rather keep Russell Westbrook on the roster for next year rather than surrender additional assets to convince someone to trade for him. The Lakers are also said to be adamant that they won't release the former MVP and eat his $47 million player option for next year after Westbrook picks it up. Now, you look at all of the other 29 teams in the NBA, and you look at that $47 million player option, and you watch Russell Westbrook from last year and really the last couple of years as the play has declined and the athleticism, albeit very small, has also gone a little bit downhill. It is almost impossible to move on from Russ. And I'm starting to believe with the reports that we're seeing out there, especially when the Lakers were going throughout their head coaching search, talking to coaches, asking them if they can maximize Russ on this roster, that he's going to be back. And I think that's very problematic for this basketball team moving forward because I don't think he plays a winning style of basketball. And I think the play, which has already declined, is starting to more so fall off a cliff. And it's just not conducive to playing a winning brand of hoops, which is what the Lakers are starting to get back to and hopefully going to get back to under new head coach Darvin Ham. But I believe, and am starting to believe, and get this hunch that Russell Westbrook is going to be back. I hope I'm wrong, but I want to hear from you in the comments section. If Russ is on this team, do you think the Lakers can make it back to the playoffs? Give me a Y for yes or an N for no. Sound off and be real with me in the comment section right now. It's not impossible, but the Lakers would have to build a perfect roster around LeBron, AD, and Russ if he were to come back to his hometown team. The offense was way too clunky in my opinion. There wasn't enough floor spacers from a shooting perspective, and the defense for the Lakers last year was also bad. Now, if LeBron James plays a lot, and if he's not off injured, same can be said for Anthony Davis, maybe you're able to make up for the lack of play from Russell Westbrook and that maddening style that we've talked about here. Shooting splits, though, look, with Russell Westbrook, I think the game has passed him by to a certain degree. You look at the field goal percentage, the three-point percentage at sub 30%. When you have a point guard, a starting point guard, who is taking 16 shots per game and only connecting on about 44% of his field goals and less than 30% of his downtown attempts, that is problematic for what Darvin Ham probably wants to do. As for Anthony Davis, look, yeah, he shot less than 19% from beyond the arc last year. I think he's going to come into camp and this upcoming year a little bit more motivated. I'm confident in LeBron James, but I am a little bit concerned about his plaguing injury issues as he gets a little bit older. The Lakers had a negative net rating in lineups when LeBron, AD, and Russ were all on the floor last year. So Anthony Davis after the year was like, look, we didn't get to play enough games together as a trio. We don't know what we're able to do. Well, according to the analytics, we saw that the Lakers, with that big three that played like a small three, wasn't an efficient trio. LeBron, AD, and Russ, in the somewhat limited sample size that they did have, had a negative net rating. They were a below 500 basketball team, and I don't like their offense stylistically with what I saw last year. The sample size was enough for me, as compared to what Anthony Davis said, for me to say that I don't think the Lakers, if Russell Westbrook comes back, are going to be among the best teams in the NBA. Maybe 10 years ago, this would be a Lakers offense that we would be excited to tune in to watch night in and night out. But with the current iteration of this roster, with a lot of changes that need to be made, even with Darvin Ham changing up things from a stylistic component offensively, I have a lot of worries about this basketball squad. Now, coming up on today's show, we're just getting started. The coaching staff latest around Ham. Marc Stein, reported on the process that's going to take place in order to fill out Darvin Ham's staff. That's coming up right around the corner. But I mentioned off the top, I want to tell you about Aura. They specialize in really saving you from fraud and you getting your identity stolen. You do more online, and we do more online than ever, because everything really lives in the digital sphere, and Aura does more to keep you and your family safe. They are offering right now a 14-day free trial if you go to aura.com/chatsports. You can do your shopping, you can bank online without having to worry about your credit card getting hacked. I know a lot of us out there have gotten that notification from our banks that our credit card did indeed get hacked. Then you have to start a new credit card, they have to mail it to you, and then online you have to change all of your credit card info, and that is an exhausting process. You can get rid of all of those worries and those headaches by going to aura.com/chatsports, shop, bank, work online more safely and privately thanks to today's presenting sponsor, Aura. Marc Stein on the Lakers coaching staff search around Darvin Ham. According to the buzz in NBA coaching circles over the weekend, Ham has likewise been promised the autonomy to pick his coaching staff and is said to have received assurances that Lakers senior advisor Kurt Rambis will not be a regular presence in coaching meetings like he was with Frank Vogel, which, by the way, is just straight up weird. If those promises come to fruition and Ham actually receives all that latitude, they will rank as significant concessions secured by a first-time NBA head coach. Ham is going to be given a longer leash than Frank Vogel. It would be an awful look for Los Angeles if they go on out there this year and they have a bad campaign and then they panic and fire Darvin Ham. He is going to be given a couple of years in order to prove his worth, to prove the Lakers brass right that they made the correct decision. The 2021-2022 assistant coaches were as followed, and maybe some of these guys are going to be back in the fold, but I can assure you that Darvin Ham is going to fill out the roster with his coaching staff with his type of guys. David Fizdale, Phil Handy, Mike Penberthy, Miles Simon, John Lucas III, and Quentin Crawford. Among these 6 coaches, I wouldn't hate Phil Handy because he's a really good player developer and a former skills coach. Outside of that, anybody can go in my opinion. But according to Marc Stein, Handy could leave for the Brooklyn Nets due to his strong relationship with Kyrie Irving from his time with the Cleveland Cavaliers. That would be a big loss for the player development process of this franchise. And I think Darvin Ham is going to try to do everything he can do in order to keep Phil Handy. But this guy is revered and respected in a lot of NBA circles with his ability to work with players with their respective skill sets. Coming up next on the show, assistant coaching candidates to watch out for. Targets for Darvin Ham, including a former head coach or 2. As for how many, make sure you stay tuned to find out. But first, name a coach that you want on Darvin Ham's staff for 2022-2023. As I kind of previewed there, some intriguing names that could be on the bench alongside Darvin Ham, but I want to hear from you first. Assistant coaches to watch. Guys who are in the interview process for Los Angeles. If Kenny Atkinson comes down from San Francisco to Los Angeles, I think that's a really good get as the lead assistant for Darvin Ham. Charles Lee, another guy who was in the fold for this Lakers head coaching search to replace Frank Vogel, assistant for Milwaukee. Now with Darvin Ham leaving, if he stays with the Bucks, he probably immediately becomes the number 1 coach under Mike Budenholzer. Scott Brooks, current assistant with the Portland Trail Blazers, as an assistant head coach. I kind of like him. As an assistant on the staff, I'm a big fan of it. If he were to be the head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, I would certainly have some problems there. Former Orlando Magic head coach, Steve Clifford. He could be in this bench and on this bench as well. Brings a lot of experience to the table, and I think with a rookie head coach in Darvin Ham, that is going to be important. How about this name? If he's not locked up, Rajon Rondo. Is his playing career going to come to a close? Is the legal situation going to get solved? If it does, the legal situation, if it gets solved and Rondo no longer plays, people have raved about his future as a coach in this league. Obviously, he's going to have to start off as an assistant. He's not going to get the Jason Kidd and Steve Nash treatment where he immediately becomes a head coach in the league. He's going to have to carve out a role for himself and maybe throw some water on the flames of him being a bad character guy. But as a basketball guy, people rave about his basketball IQ, his development, and work with some players all across the NBA, even as a current player in this league. I'd really like him as an assistant under Darvin Ham, of course, if everything else checks out. Make sure you subscribe to us here on the Lakers Report. We're doing our best to pump out the best Lakers content on YouTube. When the Lakers hired Darvin Ham, I did a video from the crib. We also do some creative segments, like some Lakers trade targets. If Russell Westbrook were to stay, we're the best at audience interaction. We heard from you with your best Lakers trade ideas. We put together a mailbag and talked about those trade ideas. So as we continue to grow, make sure you subscribe to us here on the Lakers Report for the best Lakers coverage right here on YouTube. Let's get to 45,000 subs by the end of the week. Right now, we're a little more than 300 people away, 374 to be exact. Next up on the show, we got a doozy for you. We're talking OG Anunoby. Could the Lakers look to trade for him? Man, this is a juicy topic to talk about. Anunoby, one of the more intriguing names that's emerging in trade chatters across NBA circles, and a guy who's really done a masterful job of getting in the lab, working on his game to become a pretty solid offensive player. This coming from Jake Fischer of Bleacher Report. Following a standout season from Rookie of the Year Scotty Barnes, word has circulated among rival front offices that Anunoby grew dissatisfied at times with his role in Toronto, where Barnes joined Pascal Siakam and Fred VanVleet as the primary ball handlers and Nick Nurse's offense. Two sources with knowledge of the dynamic told BR that Anunoby has not directly expressed discontent with the situation with the Raptors. Perhaps the conversation around him has been driven more by external interest in acquiring the fifth-year forward services. That's what it reeks to me of, is that other teams are like, yo, OG Anunoby, he's playing like an OG, an original gangsta. This guy's a really good player. We want him. Try to see what his trade value is. Let's drum up some of these nonsensical rumors to see if he is available. If he were to be available, should the Lakers trade for him? T for trade, P for pass. Impressive development for him over time. And I think the Toronto Raptors, in addition to the Miami Heat, Golden State Warriors, teams of that ilk, they do as good of a job as anybody of developing talent. The Raptors over time, think of what they've been able to do. Going back to DeMar DeRozan, Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam, OG Anunoby. The jump that I saw this past year from Precious Achiuwa was really impressive too. The list goes on and on and on. That's a credit to Masai Ujiri, Nick Nurse, and the culture there above the border. First 3 years for OG Anunoby, 23-plus minutes per game, averages of about 8 points, 3.5 rebounds, a steal per night. Took about 3 3-point attempts per game and connected on about 36.5% of his 3-point attempts. Points per game, though, this past year. Last 2 years, really impressive. It's gone up twofold. 16.5 points per game, 5.5 rebounds, 1.5 steals. Athletically, he gives you length and athleticism and spunk, so he's really good on both ends of the floor. As the 3-point attempts have gone up by more than double, the 3-point numbers have also increased to nearly 38%. That's why a lot of teams out there really do like him. As for his contract, he's a little bit expensive after that recent contract extension. 2022-2023, this upcoming year, $17.3 million. The year after that, $18.6 and then the following year, player option of about $19 million. If you're getting what he gave the Raptors the last 2 years at that price tag, pretty good value for OG Anunoby. Appreciate all of you for making today's show a part of your day. Don't forget to subscribe, like the video, comment, and thank you so much for supporting everything we do.